Good morning, everyone. So, in the last session, we discussed about the one of the important concept to call collection frameworks, how we can use inside this particular Spring core here. We have a different types of attributes we are having, and we are trying to use those attributes here. Like yesterday, we discussed about the list, and we discussed about the set, as well as we discussed about the map. So, any questions regarding these particular three attributes here? Anyone having any questions? The first one we discussed about the list, and the second one we discussed about the set here, and the third one we identified, so map here. Any questions on this? Okay, so if you are having, yes, otherwise you can like message me, so that I can understand, so we are in the same track or not. Sure. So I'm not getting any response, so that I'm expecting all are fine with this particular sections what we discuss. Okay, now the another section I'm trying to implement here something like a prop. So the property is how we are going to use it. This is important, we need to understand. Basically, property will not use this particular instrument object. Whatever the property we are having, like where I implemented here inside this particular instrument list, where we are having the particular instrument list here. Now you can see we define this particular example map of string comma instrument here, because map it can contain any key and any value. So there is no restrictions here. So now you can create a person or like a member, or you can come up with any bank related, or you can create any e-commerce related application. Anything it's going to like allow inside this particular map property. But for this particular prop property, we cannot use the this object information. This is important here. We need to use string comma string. For example, if I'm going to modify the particular section, what happens internally? For example, here I'm trying to use, instead of this particular map, I'm going to use props. Okay. Here also I'm going to use props here. And what exactly it is containing here? The prop basically, like a prop is nothing but property tag here, and internally it is not using this particular entry here. So what is the tag is expecting here? Now I'll try to comment out this. Okay, now I will try to comment out this, and we'll try to create the property related tags here. So what is the tag we are having? The props is a it is a multi-level tag here. Now it's going to take multiple values, and inside this particular props we are having prop tag. Now I'm trying to store this particular prop tag, and the key, the same key, whatever the key we used here. So here I'm trying to use the same key, and value. Now if I'm going to see anything we are having here, we don't have any another attributes here, only key we are having. So there is no value attribute. If you give the control space, whatever the remaining attributes we are having inside this particular tag, we are going to get here. But as of now, we don't have any tags information. So this is important, we need to understand here. So once this particular tags we don't have, now what we need to understand basically, here, the particular value we are going to provide in between where this particular tag is open, where this particular tag is closed. So this particular tag is entirely, we can call it as an open tag, and this particular section we can call it as a closed here. In between we can use this particular value. So what is the value I'm trying to use? The same value whatever we used here. Now, for example, if I'm trying to use this particular value, now if I'm going to run here, what happens internally? So we need to understand this, how it is going to work. Now if you see, we are getting class cast exception. Any reason like why we are getting this particular class cast exception? Any idea?
fully qualified class.
Now, okay. Now you can read this here, whatever the message we are getting here. Can you read this so that you will get understand what happening internally?
So the class cannot be found, sir.
See, the class is already found. Now the problem here, whatever the class we are having right now, java.lang.string, this is the class. Now what we are doing, we are trying to converting into the instrument class. Now you can see cannot cast. Cast basically we are trying to convert into the particular class called instrument. Getting the point? So why it is trying to converting into instrument? Here, what is the class we provided inside this particular instrument list here? Now if you see, so this particular map is expecting string as a key and value as a instrument. Okay, but here the properties basically what is going to expect here, it will try to take only string comma string. Getting the point? The value also we are trying to providing string, but finally we are trying to converting into the instrument. Because of this, now it is not converting. Getting the point? It is not converting. Now what is the best option we can use? So first here, now you need to comment out this. Okay, so you need to comment out this, and here instead of this particular instrument we need to provide string only. Okay, the value I'm trying to take as a string, and now if we modify this, it will work here. And so these are all the, we can go for the same, I think we can use. And here instead of calling this particular play, we'll try to print the value. Okay, I'm trying to print this particular value. Now if I'm going to run the same example, where is our main class? Now you can see what happening. This is the key and this is the value. So where we given this particular key? Now if I'm going to explain here, you can read here the piano we given as a key, and the value we are trying to give between this particular opening the particular tag and closing this particular tag. So whatever the prop attribute we are using here, so opening and closing between, we are trying to use this particular value as a property. Okay, this is important, we need to understand here. For another case, now what I will do, so same thing I'm going to create, and here the second key I'm going to give as a something like a guitar, and so third one I'm trying to give as a something like a instrument here. Now if I'm going to run the same example, now you can see what happening internally. So it's trying to execute this particular object here. So piano is the key and inst is the value. Same thing, inst is the key and this particular inst is the value. So capital letters and small letter we can easily understand. So guitar is the key and inst is the value. But what we need to understand, whenever we are trying to use this particular prop tag, whenever we are trying to use this particular prop tag here, so we need to use the string as a key and value also we need to give as a key only. Getting the point? So this is important, we need to understand. But when we are trying to discuss about the map, we can give anything. The key also we can give anything, and the value also we can give anything. So there is no restrictions. But when we are trying to discuss about this particular property, so we have some restrictions we need to follow. Same whatever the syntax we are having as of now. Okay. Any questions? Okay, now if we don't have anything, now if we observe carefully, now what I will do, I'm trying to change this particular property, something different to sound here. Okay, so this is the internally piano is going to get some this particular sound here, and now if you understand the same example, so instead of writing the default like a same value property, I'm trying to come up with different values here. Now you will understand here, this is the different value and this is the different value and this is the different value. So here now you can see key and value both are different, and here now you can see key and value both are different. Same way here also. Getting the point? So this is the way we are trying to creating the one of the important example called this particular props related example. Okay. Now what I will do, I'm going to move on to the another important example called auto wiring. So before going to discuss about the auto wiring, now what I will do, how we can insert this particular property as a null value. How we can insert this particular property as a null. So what is the property? Here we are trying to discuss about the this particular song. Now what I want to do, I want to insert the null value. How we can insert this particular null value? Here, this is the property we are having song, and here I'm trying to provide in this particular value. So in place of this particular value, now what I will do, I'm going to provide something like and here we are having null property. Okay, so this particular value I'm going to give. Whatever this particular null we are defining here, this particular null, it is going to store inside this particular song property. Okay, inside this particular song property, it will try to initialize the value. Now you can see if I'm going to run the same example, now what is the value we are getting is null we are getting. Now what you are understanding, if you are interested to initialize any null values, what we can do, simply we can provide this particular null tag here. Okay, simply we can provide this particular null tag so that whatever the property we are trying to initializing, it will try to initialize with the null value. Okay, so this is all about the null values, how we can initialize here. And another important section, auto wiring. So auto wiring basically, this auto wiring basically, it will try to work internally on the constructor tag as well as the property tag. Basically what we are doing is, we are trying to providing the dependent object whenever we are trying to creating the parent object here. Getting the point? And what we are doing is, so far we are trying to use this particular constructor tag as well as the property tag to create the to create the object of the particular dependent object here. But if it is a large application, imagine we are having 1,000 classes we define. Whenever we are defining this particular 1,000 classes, how we are going to create this constructor and element. So it is going to increase. It is going to increase this particular constructor as well as property tag where we are using. Now if you see here, we are using one property tag, and here somewhere here, now you can see we are trying to use this particular constructor tag. Whenever we are having lot of classes around, you can see like 1,000 classes we are having, we are going to write this particular constructor tag as well as this particular property tag 1,000 times here. Getting well? So it is, we cannot write the same tag multiple times here. Now what we will do, so this particular section in our Spring Core application, we can reduce here with the help of this particular concept called Autowire. Getting the point? This particular section we can reduce with the help of this particular Autowire. Right. Now we'll see what are the different types of we are having Autowire concept. First we need to identify the by name, and later we are like the different types I will write here first. So first one by name here. Okay, and another one is by type here. So what is the object type we are going to have, and so another one is constructor. Okay, so this particular auto detect, basically this auto detect is deprecated, no need to discuss this, but still initially this auto detects also it is available. Getting the point? By name, by type, constructor, and auto detect. This particular auto detect basically it is deprecated. Okay, so we'll focus more onto this particular three section, how we can use the Autowire concept based on this particular by name, by type, and constructor. So what is the advantage we are going to get basically? So using this particular Autowire concept, we are going to reduce the constructor as well as the property tag so far, whatever we used here. Okay, now you can see what I will do. First, we'll discuss about the Autowire with help of this particular by name here. Get in mind. We are trying to discuss about the by name here. Now, if you see here, so what is the tag we are using? Earlier, this particular instrument, if it is not a collection, because this Autowire will work on only a single object, not this particular multiple object here. Now, what I will do, so I will try to remove this particular collection related example, or we can move on to the round table. So this is the best one. We can move on to this particular round table. Okay. Instrument example we discussed with the help of this particular collection related sections here. Now I'm moving into the round table. Inside this particular round table, so let me comment out this first. Okay, we'll come back to here. Whatever we are discussing here. Now observe carefully. If you observe carefully, this is the round table object we are having and is expecting two constructors here. First one is the string related property and the second one is object here. Getting pin. Second one is object here. Now what you need to understand here, instead of defining this particular two tags, constructor or property, what we can do, here we are having, getting pin, here we are having this particular bean ID level. One is the Autowire property. Now you can see here, getting the pen. Here we are having Autowire. Now what you can do, so this is the default Autowire is taking. Now it will not do any operations here. But what we can write here based on this particular by name. Okay, Autowire by name here. So what is the name we are having basically? Something like guest here. Where is the class? Here you can see this is the property. Okay, this is the property we are going to make with help of this particular Autowire concept here. Now carefully observe name of the property, because what is the tag we are using? By name. What is the name of this particular property? Guest here. Whenever we are trying to create an object with help of this particular guest here, what happens internally? It will try to inject the object automatically. Okay, it will inject the object automatically. If you see here, now I am going to comment on these two. Okay, constructor as well as this particular property tag, I'm making guest object. Okay, I'm trying to make same guest object, so don't confuse it. So this is we are trying to work here. Getting the point. This is important. The section we are discussing regarding this particular Autowire, I'm trying to providing this particular name as a what is the property we are defining. The name of the property same as a guest here. Okay. Now we'll go to this particular example. Before going to discuss about this example, okay, we are loading this. Now we'll come back to here. I'm going to comment out this because we are not discussing about the performer, and we'll discuss about this particular round table. Okay. Here we are trying to discuss this particular round table. Now if I'm going to run this, what happening internally? So we are getting an exception. So what is the exception we are getting? So something creating a bean with the round table. Anything we are missing? Unsatisfied the dependency. Okay, so here we are trying to providing constructor injection. Because of this, now it is getting an error. So remove this. Okay, now Without providing any parameters here, we need to run this example. Now you can see what happening internally. We are getting whatever we expected values here. So simply the person ID 42. So first name is Ram and the last name is Kumar. How we are getting it, this is important. Here now if you go to this particular Spring Core, I did not use any the constructor tag or I did not use any property tag. So just I declare bean tag here and I use the Autowire concept here. And this constructor we are using, this particular constructor we are using, it is a string property. Okay, observe carefully. It is a string property. Okay, because of this particular string property, we are using this particular constructor. But whatever the guest we are defining here, there is no constructor or property. How we are injecting this with the help of this particular Autowire here. Okay. So any questions regarding this particular by name Autowire concept here? Okay. Now if you don't have anything, now I'm going to change with the by type here. See, now here what I will do, if I'm going to make as a guest one, here I need to make same guest one here. Okay, I think yeah, in the 3 location only we need to modify here. Now observe carefully, I modified this. Now I'm trying to run this example. What happening internally? Same example we are getting. Okay, so now if you go to this, here I'm trying to modify guest one here. I'm trying to modify guest one. So if you go to the same example, again I'm going to run this particular example. Now you can see null pointer exception we are getting. So round table guest one here. Getting the point. So we are not identifying this. Why we are not identifying it? Now what you understand here? So this is getting the point. This is the name of the property what we given here. Now if you go to this line number 24 in the round table, line number 24 here. This guest one is we are getting as a null. Whenever we are getting as a null, we are trying to access this particular load person method. Okay. The load person method is trying to returning null pointer exception here. What you understand here? Here we are having a round table and a guest one object. Round table and a guest one object we are having here. But what we can do? Even though we are having this particular guest one object, we are unable to access this particular example here. What we need to understand? Basically, the name of the property is the same, guest only. Okay, the name of the property and type of the property is also same. This is important here. The guest is a custom object. What is the type we are going to use? Same guest. Okay, and if it is this particular name of the property is also same guest, because of this we modified with help of this guest one. So whenever we are modifying this, it could not identify here. So I will try with by type here. Okay, I'm trying to try the example with help of this particular by type. So observe carefully what happening internally. So we need to understand here. Now you can see we are trying to get the same record here. Getting fine. We are trying to get the same record. So now you can see this is important we need to understand. So why the by name is throwing an exception and why the by type it is trying to give the value. Any idea? Okay. So if we don't have answer about this, now we need to understand here. See, by name basically whatever the name of the property we are going to use, it will try to inject the value. The naming convention should be The naming convention should be here. We need to satisfy the condition, whatever the condition we are using. So if we observe carefully, so the name of the property guest here, the object type we are providing as a guest. Okay, and the name should be, we need to pass as same. Okay, the name should be, we need to pass as the same, something like a guest only. Whenever we are trying to modify with one or two something with a different name of the like by name property you could not recognize. Basically, the by name property it will try to work on this particular property. Okay, by type is going to work on this particular property. This is important here. By type is going to work on this particular whatever the type of the object we are defining, and this section is going to work on the by name here. So this is important information we need to understand very carefully. So whenever we are trying to discuss this particular two example here. Okay, this is clear. Any questions regarding this particular by name and by type here? How it is injecting internally? This is important. Based on this particular property, it will try to inject the object automatically without creating any the references here. Whatever the references we used earlier, the particular constructor or the property tag here, right? Now, by type also we identified here. The by type basically it will try to use the this particular object type. And what about this particular constructor? Constructor basically it will try to work on the constructor information. Okay. Now, where is the tag I'm going to use as it is? And here I'm trying to add this particular constructor. Whenever I'm trying to add this particular constructor, now here, constructor. Okay. I'm trying to use this particular constructor. Now, if I'm going to run this particular example one more time, now what you are understand, the same output, whatever the output we identified, the same output we are getting here. Getting me? The same output we are getting. But for this particular constructor, what are all the changes we made? This is important. For this particular constructor, what are the changes we made here? Now you can see we are adding this particular parameter, whatever this particular object. Whatever the object we are having, the object we are adding as a guest here, and internally we can use this particular the parameter here. Finally, the object is passing whenever this particular constructor is going to call, and with help of the same object we are trying to call the load person, and we are getting the object information here. Okay, so is it clear? Constructor information it should work on the only whatever the property we are going to provide to the constructor. Okay, whatever the object we are going to provide to this particular object, it will work internally. Same thing. So it is going to create the new the round table. Okay, and here we are going to pass the first parameter something like name, and this particular value with the help of this particular constructor, first it will create the guest object, the guest is going to pass here. But first it will give you the priority to this particular guest object because it is a dependent object here. So the round table internally it is depending on this particular guest object. So first 100% this object should be created. Otherwise we'll get an error. After this it will try to create the round table object. Okay. Now if we observe carefully how these objects are going to create it internally. Whatever we are trying to providing here, get the point, whatever we are trying to providing this particular round table. Now if you see here the round table, so what is the ID we are having? So it is trying to use a small round table, and is equals to new round table. Okay, this is the way these objects are going to create it internally. And here what we are doing is we are passing the name and guest object information. Getting the point? Same thing, but this particular reference is going to identified by the our container here. When this particular reference is available, it will not create one more object here. it will try to reuse wherever we are trying to use here. Okay, this is important. We need to understand wherever we are trying to reuse this particular example, it will use the same object in the multiple location instead of recreating the one more object here. So we'll see what is the different ways we can create the multiple objects here. So the section will discuss about the scopes here, but now so far we are trying to discuss about the Autowire concept. So by name, by type, as well as constructor. These are all the three auto wiring concept. These are all the main major important concept we need to understand here. See, basically different name, like how we are going to create inside this. For example, if I'm going to copy this particular same, type should be the same or type is different. So what is the type we are going to create? Okay. So if I'm going to use this particular type same, now what I will do, here I'm going to provide this particular same parameter here, and here and what we can do. So just this object I'm going to print. I will not do any changes here. Simply I will print this particular object here. So before going to call this, here I'm going to print this object here, and later we can call this particular load person. Now you can see here we are getting the particular guest object. Okay. Here whatever this particular guest object is there, it is trying to create. But what is the object is going to create? Same object. Now if you compare this inside the round table, if I'm going to print this section also. Okay, if I'm trying to print this particular section also here. This is important, we need to understand here. Now, both our objects are same. Okay, same object is created and it is trying to pass into the two locations. Because this particular object is expecting now three parameters. First one is string and the remaining two parameters is going to take as a string object types here. Whenever he is expecting this particular object types here, now what happens internally, one object is going to create it here, and this particular object it will try to pass into this particular two objects. So here only we can easily identify, because of this object the reference is same, but it's trying to pass into the two locations here. Okay, is it clear? So this is only the advantage we are going to get in the Spring. Whenever we are, instead of creating as an object, if you are trying to pass to the configuration file, the Spring container, it will try to create only one object and it will try to reuse wherever we are trying to use this particular same object here. Okay, so this is the advantage we are going to get from our Spring core here. Is it clear? Any questions? Okay, so anyone having any questions regarding this particular auto wiring concept? So far, whatever we discussed here, like first we discuss about the by name, and another property we discuss about the by type, and the last property we discuss about the constructor related important information. Okay.
Sir,
Now,
if
yes, tell
yeah,
me.
I have a question. Sorry. If there are more than two objects, then also just one object is created and the same values passed.
Okay, instead of this particular guest, if I'm going to use instrument, so this object is different here. Now, what happens internally? So this particular instrument we need to create inside this particular code So here, how we are creating this particular guest one, we need to copy this, and here I'm going to make as a, okay, instead of doing this, where we created instrument, I think we did not create it. Okay, so instrument internally is implemented by which class? Okay, so which, I think piano, right? Piano is implemented instrument. Okay, now I will create this. Here, so I'm passing this particular piano. Now once we pass this, now what we can do? Inside the round table, here I'm going to call play method. And we'll come back to here and we'll run the same example. Now you can see the piano is triggering and the person also we are loading. Okay, here we are having two objects are different. First one is like a string property. Second one is guest we created, and the third one is we come up with the instrument here. And now what I did here, so the simple attribute we used here, something like Autowire constructor, and I'm not using any the constructor property. So we need to provide the object, which object we need to create. This is important here. If you are not creating this, these two sections here, it will not create an object here. Getting the point? It will not create an object here. So this is one of the important example we need to understand here, how this particular Autowire is working internally. Okay, so is it clear? Any questions?
Clear, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, so for example, now what we need to understand here, what happens here if I'm going to add this particular property here? Getting the point? If I'm going to add this particular property, so what happens here? So this particular guest one I'm adding, as well as I'm going to add this particular instrument also. Okay, I'm trying to add. Here I'm trying to add same Autowire concept. And here I'm trying to use this particular constructor here. What happens internally? So now you can see if I'm going to run this particular same example here, whatever we are trying to discuss here, any exception we are getting here? So we are not getting any exception. Getting the point? So why we are not getting any exception here? Basically, what we need to understand here, internally, whenever we are trying to use this particular ambiguity, like we are trying to work with the Autowire, and the same way, explicitly we are trying to defining this particular property. So whenever we are trying to use this particular section, this particular container is going to get some ambiguity. So which Autowire concept I want to use here. Okay. Now what we can do here? So here, this particular section, it will try to use the information first is going to take the highest priority on the constructor property tags. Either whatever you are using this particular tags is going to take highest priority. Getting the point? If you are not adding these tags, it will try to redirect to this particular Autowire. Now you can comment out this. There is no use of this particular section because explicitly we are adding these particular properties. But whenever we are adding these two, we can eliminate the Autowire. And when you are not interested to add this particular section, we can come up with the Autowire concept here. Okay. If you are adding both, this particular tags is going to take highest priority, either constructor or this particular properties here. Okay. Is it clear? And here, so what is the another important section we can discuss here? Autowire I'm trying to use as it is, and instead of this particular reference here. Now what I will do, instead of this particular reference here, I'm going to make null here. Here, I'm going to make this particular null here. Now we'll see what happens internally. Okay, in the two locations, I'm trying to give null. Getting the point. So constructor, I'm trying to providing null, and the same, the Autowire, I'm trying to keep as it is here. Now, whenever we are doing this particular example, we need to understand what happening internally. We are getting a null pointer exception. Why we are getting the null pointer exception? Now you can understand here. So which the particular attributes is taking highest priority? Getting the point. Earlier we could not understand what happens here, but now we are understanding it. We are getting the null pointer exception, round table, line number 28. Now you can see whenever I'm trying to play this song here, I'm getting an exception because this object is now it is null. Even though we are trying to providing this particular Autowire, what happens here internally? This Autowire is now it is not working because it's giving the highest priority to execute on these two properties. So this is important here when you are trying to like adding this particular explicitly constructor or property tag. So we can eliminate this particular Autowire. There is no use of this particular section. So this is the purpose I want to explain how this working internally. Okay. So now we'll identify here how this particular Autowiring concept is working internally. We'll try to discuss about the bean controlling, how we can control this particular beans here. So far, we don't have any option to control the bean because all the beans are going to internally control by the container. Okay, either the bean factory or the application context is going to control. But what we need to understand, we are having some scope concept here. So using this particular scope concept here, we are going to handle the beans here. Explicitly, we are going to handle this particular beans. Okay. Now observe what are all the important ways we can handle this particular scope here. Getting the point. Now you can see we have a different types of scopes here. We have a different types of scopes. We are having the first one is by default we are going to use singleton. Okay, this is the default scope. And another one, what we can write here, prototype. Okay, another one is prototype. Now we'll try to discuss about the particular request and the session. So this is not the like a good way to implement this particular request here and session. So far we can discuss only these two sections. Getting the point. Default scope is a singleton, and if you want to explicit add this particular scope, we can write the prototype. But right now, this request and session, whenever we are discussing the MVC related application, we can handle this particular two example, request and session. But we'll focus this one right now. The prototype, how it is going to work internally. Getting the point. This particular prototype basically, it is going to allow the beans, it will try to create the number of times. It will try to create this particular bean number of times here. So this is important, we need to understand here. How this particular bean is going to create number of times. So that is the important information we need to understand here. Now let's see the simple example how we can create here. Here only we can add. I'm removing this particular Autowire because we are trying to write explicitly. And here we are having one property called scope property. Okay. This particular scope property, we can use the singleton or prototype. By default, it is a singleton. If you are writing or if you are not writing, default behavior is a singleton. But explicitly, if I'm going to write this particular prototype, this is important here, how this particular example are going to identify here. Okay, example are going to identify. This section basically what it will do, it will try to create the number of objects. But right now, we cannot identify how many objects are created. We are trying to work on the only same object. Getting the point? We are trying to work on this particular example as the same object. Now what I will do here, whatever we discuss internally, this particular example. Now, so one more instrument I'm going to add here. Instead of GUE, we can make as a instrument here. Okay. And here, what we can do, here we need to set this dot instrument is equals to instrument we need to set here, and finally inside this particular meeting method I'm going to call so the simple objects here. Let me enable this, and here instrument and one more instrument I'm going to pass. Getting the point? Now here what you need to understand here, we need to add one more tag here. So whatever this particular GU we are having. Okay, these are all the two objects I'm creating. First one is instrument, second one is the guest related section we are trying to creating here. Now I'm going to run the same example. So what is the scope we provided here? Prototype scope. Now if you see here, internally two objects are created. Now you can easily understand the references here. Getting the point? Usually like you can understand here the references, object references, we can understand this is the two objects are different. Okay, these are all the two objects we are creating. So this is the way of writing the prototype. The scope here, what happens internally, it will try to create the number of objects. So how many times we are going to call this particular bean? So this is important. Which bean we are calling? Something like a piano related example here. If I'm trying to call this particular bean multiple times here, multiple objects is going to create. Every time it will try to create the new object here. Okay, every time it will try to create the new object. For example, I'm trying to removing this particular scope. Okay, I'm trying to remove this particular scope. So now observe the same example here. Whatever the example we are trying to create here, now observe what happening internally. So now also it is trying to creating two objects. Why it is creating two objects here? Getting the point. So if I'm going to providing here, we'll come up with a scope here. So one more scope I'm trying to use, something like a singleton. Okay, now I'm trying to use this particular singleton. Anything we are missing? Here, now you can understand here. Now also we are getting two objects. Getting the point. Even though we are using this particular singleton, but still we are getting a two objects here. Getting the point. This is important, we need to understand. So the same example, if we observe carefully here, now what you need to understand here, I'm going to explain here. So I'm trying to comment out this section. Otherwise, I'm trying to comment out this. This, the same constructor, here also I'm going to call. The same constructor, here also I'm going to call two times here. Now you can see the same object is creating. Getting the point. So same object is created and now it is passing here. Now if I'm going to modify to the prototype. Now if I'm trying to modify the scope to the prototype here. Now we'll see how this particular example it is going to create internally. Now what is the difference we are getting here? No differences here. Okay, this is important, we need to understand. Whenever we are trying to creating this particular bean, what happening internally? It is trying to use the It is trying to use the same object. Let me see what are the different value we can have inside this particular scope here. So what we created is same only, right? I think, yeah. It should be two objects basically. Okay, let me comment out this. We'll try with Autowire. What is a constructor, right? We'll try with this. Okay, so even though it is constructed, it is trying to creating same type. Now we need to check this. What are all the properties we are having inside this? Let me copy this XSD. And let me type. So what are the scopes we are having here? Attribute name, scope we are having here, and anything we have inside this. What are the values we are having? First one is singleton prototype. So the scope is defined. Okay, get bin. Okay, so you can see here how many times we are going to call this particular get bin. You can read this. It will try to create the object here. So the section we are missing here. So this is important. We need to understand here how many times we are going to call this particular get bin here. Because of this, we are getting the same exception. Let me try this. We'll go to here. The same time I'm going to call one more time here. What are the object type we provided? Prototype only. Bean factory, and these are all the section is same. Bean factory same we can create, and okay, instead of creating this, we'll copy the same object here. Now we'll try to call one more time, and here I'm going to make 1, and we will call 1. Let me enable this. So why it is not working? So it should work basically. No. Okay, something we are missing by default. Sorry, I missed here. Here only we need to provide the tags. So in the wrong place, I'm trying to providing this tag. This tag not required this. Here we need to provide. Okay, now we'll run this. Now you can see, so 2 objects we are getting. So the location I given wrong here. Because of this, we are getting every time 1 object, because the round table is trying to creating only a single object here. What we are expecting is the instrument should be get multiple times here. The instrument object we are expecting 2 objects here. Now we are getting the 2 objects here. Getting the point. So this is important. We need to understand here how this particular example it is going to create, because round table we are calling only 1 object, and internally this instrument we are calling 2 times. So here we are trying to print 1, and this is the one more object. Now you can see, so 8 is different, and this FE is the different object. So here also we are calling same because this section is calling from this particular bean factory same. Inside the bean factory, again it will load the same round table object. So far, how many objects we created, it will try to return here. Now what I'm doing is, so what we need to understand here, for this particular instrument, I'm giving the scope as a prototype. When we are trying to give this particular scope as a prototype, the instrument object is creating multiple times. Okay, so this is the section we need to understand. But internally, what we need to understand, whenever we are calling this particular get bean, so just now we discussed here only it is showing the information. So independent instant resulting from each call to the get bean method. Getting the point. So these are all the important information we need to understand here. Now we have another such as request and session. We'll discuss later whenever we are trying to discuss about the Spring MVC related example, because here we are not going to give any request related applications here. So it is a simple application. So the scope basically by default it is a singleton. If you are adding the singleton, if you are removing this particular prototype also, it will work same. Whatever the same example we identified, it will give only the same object for the multiple times here. For the single time, only one object is going to create and it will try to call the same object multiple times. So a simple example we identified, right? Now if I'm removing this, if you call this example, now you can see 84 B8 only we are getting. And if you're explicitly, if you're adding also, there is no use here, but I'm trying to add this. Okay, I'm adding this particular singleton. Now run this. So even though if you are adding same, whatever this particular the BI2 we are having, the same object we are getting here. So in the two location, now you can see here also we are getting same object. Okay, so is it clear? Any questions regarding this particular bean factory? Sorry, the prototype scope related example we are discussing here, how this particular prototype is going to work internally. Okay, so if we don't have anything, now what I will do, so initializing and destroying the bean. So initializing and destroying the bean, these are all the important section. See, whatever I'm trying to providing this particular example, the scope related example, what we identified here, something like a bean name aware, bean factory, and so these are all the important examples. So far we don't have any code to write here, but in the real time scenarios we are going to write some code before creating any bean. Okay, if you want to check the bean, if the bean is already available or the objects are loading, the values we need to pass something. Get in the pen. So this particular beans, it is useful. We can write the logic here. Okay. So far we whatever the method we overrided, the inside the method we can write the specific logic. And the same way, now we have another beans here, initializing and destroying the bean. Getting the point. So initializing and destroying, basically it will try to provide the before initializing an object and before destroying it. So already we discussed here the one of the destroy method here, something like this. So now we already identified this method is not it is not calling, because this method calling section is internally, it depends on the container. When the container is going to call, it will print this mess. So far, so we don't have a scope to execute this method. Okay, remaining method, it is executing internally, it is printing the value. Same way, now what we can understand, if you want to provide custom methods, okay, I don't want to use this particular method. Whatever the method we are having, these are coming from this particular interfaces. Okay, now what I will do, here I'm going to remove this particular all the interfaces sections here. Now what happens internally? If I'm trying to remove this, so we need to remove this particular methods here. So these are all the not required here. We already identify how it is working internally. We'll try to discuss about the start like a custom methods here. How we can write this particular custom methods. Now, if we observe carefully, here I'm trying to write here something like init method. Okay. Public void init method I'm trying to write here. And here, what we can do. So for simple example, I'm not going to write much code here. Simply init method is called. Okay. And one more method I'm trying to write here. Something like public void clean. We can call it as a round table. Okay, we are trying to clean this particular round table method. These are all the two methods. Now, whenever we are adding, these are all the custom methods. Getting the point? So these are the methods not available in our Spring Core. We created this particular method. Now I want to call this particular method here. So how we are going to call? Now, if you see this here inside this particular Spring Core, here we are going to provide here what are the properties. We can remove this particular constructor. We are trying to use the explicit constructor. Now you can see we are having init method. Okay, this is the init method. Now what we can do, whatever the name of the method we created, the name of the method we can pass here. So this is the init method we are having. And here I'm trying to providing this particular init method. And after this, now what is the another method? So this is the destroy method. So destroy method basically the last method clean round table. Okay, so these are all the two methods I given. Now what I will do, I'm going to run the same example. Whatever the example we are trying to executing, the same example I'm trying to run. Now you can see, so init method is calling. So again, the same destroy method. Getting the point? Init method is calling it, the destroy method again it is not calling. Because when these objects are going to destroy, that the time only it will call this particular destroy method. So even if you are trying to implement the destroyable bean or you are trying to call this particular property call, so destroy method. So both are is going to work same, but only the difference is here we are going to create our custom method and the init method also we are trying to give custom method. Instead of doing this, what is the another option we have? You can implement the method something like bean name aware, the bean factory aware, whatever the method we are having, you can override and you can write the logic. So this is also will work. Otherwise, we can create the custom method and tag these methods into this particular properties. Okay, so these are all the another important information. This information it is going to call before creating this particular round table. Now if you see, it is calling before this particular object creations. Okay, this is we need to understand here. So any questions, init method and the destroy method? Okay, so if you don't have anything, now what I will do, how we can discuss about the parent and child relation. This is important here, how we are going to work on this particular abstract related sections and how we are going to make the abstract parent, abstract class as a parent, and how we are going to create the child classes here. This is important, we need to understand very carefully. Whenever we are trying to providing this particular information, we are going to have the property, something like here we are going to make as a one property. Let me try it here. We are having abstract here. If it is this particular class as abstract, we can make this particular section so that this particular class object is not going to create. Getting the point? Whenever we are trying to discuss about the abstract classes here, now what we can do, we can make this particular property Now internally it will try to create the, like it will not create the object of this particular round table object. Okay, this is the important information we need to understand how this particular parent and child creation. So something like inheritance here. Getting the point. Now what we can do? So if we want to make the another property, we can go for this particular property, something like parent property. So how this particular parent property is going to work? So if we want to understand here, if we want to understand this, we can make the parent property. Let me create one abstract class, and so what is the class we can make? Something. Okay, here I'm going to create the person related section. We'll create a multiple classes so that we can easily understand here how we can come up with this particular abstract related. Now I'm trying to create this particular abstract person, and what exactly this abstract person will contain here? Private int id, and here one method I can write. So whatever we have seen, the load person, this method I'm making as a abstract method. So this method I want to make as a abstract here, and we need to create this particular class as a abstract here. Getting the point. And any other information? I think this is also not needed. The ID we can create inside this particular person class. Where is our person class? And here abstract person, and here I'm going to create the particular unimplement method load person. So here what I will do, simply I will return this. Okay, it will try to return this particular object here. Now what I will do, so whenever we are calling this, where is the round table? Instead of calling this particular load, okay, so implementation guest to new person we are creating. So when we are trying to create this particular new person, now what we can do, we'll try to provide this particular, let me see what is the way of creating this. To string load person and person. Okay, I think yeah, this is fine. And finally, where is that? Where is that? Guest to. We can call this constructor and we can return the method. What I'm doing is I'm trying to creating, this is the another step, person dot load person, and this method I will return. So I'm calling this the whatever the load person we are having. Okay, this is, we need to understand carefully, but observe carefully what I'm doing here. Here I'm trying to make one of the class as a abstract here. Getting the point. So we are going to make as this particular class as abstract here. Now internally we need to write this particular code here. So what are the code we can make it? So here also you are using the same instrument here. And whenever we are using this particular same instrumental list, this is different. Okay, so we can make this particular classes guest1. The guest2 is calling, and guest2 internally it is trying to, we are creating the explicit object. Instead of creating this, now what we can do, there is a guest2. Here we can write the private person and person. If I'm going to comment on this person I'm calling. Okay, so these are all the different ways of calling it. Now, this particular guest1 internally, it is expecting one more object, something like a person. What we can do, we will try to create this as a, setter injection. Okay, set person. Now I'm going to call this inside this one property tag, person. Ref I'm trying to make as a one more person. And here, now what we will do, I'm going to create a bean ID. Okay, person class. And now what I'm doing here, I'm trying to create the person. So whenever I'm trying to create this particular person, basically what we need to understand here, the person internally, it is signed to extending from the abstract person. So the particular abstract person we need to create here. Getting the point. First we need to create the abstract person. So anyway, com dot, what is the class we are having? Spring dot core and person. And so one more object we need to create, bean ID abstract person, and the class I'm trying to create, com dot spring dot core dot, and what is the class we are having? Abstract person. And internally, getting the point, this particular abstract person basically internally it is extending. It is trying to extending this. So here, what is the parent basically? This particular abstract person, we don't have any parent here, but the child record, whatever the child record we created, the person, now it is internally, it is trying to extend in this particular object here. So now observe carefully what I am doing here. Property we can make as this particular instrument 2. Let me make this abstract person. After this, here if I'm trying to use abstract as a true, and internally we need to create this. So I think, okay, here we don't have any relation, abstract person and this particular person. It is not depending. Okay, so now I understand. So this is we are making wrong. Now here only we can provide. Where is a guest to? Here we can make as a abstract here. So we can make this particular abstract to true. And here, now what I'm doing, I'm trying to providing this particular person, and we are going to use this particular same person here. Because the guest to internally, it is trying to depends on this particular person. And we are trying to creating the person object. Person object internally, it is trying to containing properties here. What are the properties we are having internally? The property name. Now if we go to this particular person class, so first one is ID we are having. Here I'm making ID, and value some I'm going to provide as a 74. So 3 properties we are having, and the second property something like first name, and I'm making the first name something like abstract. The first name I'm trying to providing, and last name. This is the last name we are trying to providing, something like a abstract person. Okay. So now if you see basically the relation, how we are making this particular relation, this is important here. So now what I'm doing is, the whatever the abstract class we created, so that the class is no longer used here. Now we can remove this. The problem basically, this guest to internally, getting the point, this particular guest to internally, it is extending on this particular class. It is a dependent object. Whatever the person we are trying to creating, it is a dependent object here. Because of this, we need to make as an abstract queue. Once you created here, we have a one more property. We can call this particular property whenever we are trying to creating the dependent object here. We can create this particular dependent object here. So let me run the same example here. Oh. Bean definition is an abstract. Error creating a bean with round table. So what is a bean is abstract. Okay. So instead of this, if I'm going to make this, okay, here already we are having, right? Now it is available. So what we need to understand here, instrument list. What we are missing here? Okay, now I understand. Whenever it is this object, we can go for this as it is, and here this will make as a something like a round table 1. I can make the round table 1, and here I can remove this particular abstract section. We'll try to use the same, and whenever we are using okay, instrument, we are trying to creating 2 objects. First is round table 1, and guest 1 instrument. Instrument singleton. Okay, 1 second. I will try to create a separate classes so that we can easily understand this, how it is going to work, this particular abstract related section. So it is a little bit clumsy, whatever we created so far. So guest 2 is fine. Okay, up to this is fine. Now I'm trying to creating the class. What is the class? Basically, it is trying to implement here. The class basically it will try to implement this particular perform only. We'll use the same perform. Otherwise, I think we have an option to use this particular instrument list. Instrument list. Okay, we already implemented. Here, member I'm using, and this member is implementing performer. Okay, the same thing what I'm going to use, I'm going to implement this. So now observe carefully. So this is the the member class we are trying to create, and internally what I'm trying to do, the same whatever we used here, song property and instrument. Okay, instrument. And internally inside this particular perform, I'm going to print the song, and I'm going to print instrument to dot. What is the method we can call? Play method. Okay, play is a Y type. Okay, so this is. Now what I'm doing here, this particular class I'm going to make as abstract. Get in the pen. Every time we are going to use this particular class, so this particular class I will make as a abstract here. And now what we will do, we'll try to use the same object with help of different instruments here. With help of this particular instrument, we'll try to call different values. Now observe carefully what I am doing here. First I'm going to create the two objects here. So inside this particular class, we can comment out these sections. So for all the section we commented, and here I'm trying to use bean ID. Okay, now what I'm doing here I'm trying to make as a member one. So what is the class we can use? Get in the pen. So what is the class I'm trying to use? Com dot spring dot core and spring dot core after this. So member class only. Okay, if it is a member class, what we can do? Perform one. Internally is expecting property name, something like a song. Value I'm trying to give some different here. Something like some different value I'm trying to give. Okay, this is the string property. And another one, what we given so far, we did not given anything, but instrument. Now I will make as a member class. Now what I will do here, I will make as a the setter injection. Only instrument I'm making. I don't need to make the primitive type related sections here. So setter injection we are making. And what we can do, reference here. Ref also I'm trying to make as a instrument. Same thing here. Now after this, what I will do, here this property I'm going to create. Bean ID. So what is the class we are having? Com dot spring dot core dot. So piano we are having. Okay, this is one object I created. Now one more object I am going to create. Get in the pen. This is one more object I am trying to creating. Second object here. This is important here. Now you can see first the performer one I'm trying to create, and the second one instead of the name of the member we can give something like Kini, this one, and this is we can give as a David. So the Kini is trying to play the song along with this particular instrument. So David also is doing the same thing here. And how many the subject we are going to create? Only one is enough. But how many record we are having? Two record, like two persons we are having. Now what I am doing here, so I'm going to create one base object here. Get in the point. I'm going to create one base object. So how I'm trying to creating this particular base object? I'm copying this object here and here. So this is a little bit lengthy code, and base performer. Okay, so this is base performer we are having. Now what I am doing is, for this base performer, I am going to make as a abstract true. Now here what we need to understand, we need to write the one more bean ID. This ID should be Kenny, and what we will do, we'll try to work as a parent object. What is the parent we are having? Something like so base performer. Okay, it will try to injecting from this particular base, and same way. So one more base we are having. This is for this particular David. Anything we are missing? Why we are getting this? Okay, so D is capital, right? Hmm. Okay, maybe we have something ID. Kenny 2 or Kenny 1 we can give. Anything we are missing? Hmm.
So it is capital in the bean ID, and
Yes.
maybe that's why.
Whenever we are using this, where is the instrument? We need to use this particular same instrument here, and this also I'm going to comment out. Now it should work. Now what I will do here, I'm going to call this particular, and it is going to load from this particular. So I will give you the hierarchy how it is going to work. This is the base class. So something like the base performer we are having, and internally it is trying to expanding into this particular Kenny and Kenny 1. Okay, if you are trying to give one more object, you can give like this. Okay, so now you can see, instead of creating this directly, we are extending from this particular parent here. Now what I will do, I am going to run this example. I am going to run this particular example. We need to see how this example it is going to run. Where is that? I will copy this, and here round table. Instead of this particular round table, I'm going to make as a Kenny, and here what we can provide, something like so performer, same performer, and so we don't have a method, something like perform. We'll see invalid property song, no property song found. Where in the member? Okay, we'll see in the member we don't have property. Okay, so it is, there is no property. Let me change to directly we can give okay. If it is this, we need to override the one more also. setters and getters. We'll run the same example. Okay, so it is calling. Now, what you need to understand here, this is important here. Basically, we have a two members. So I will explain this, how it is implementing. We are trying to implementing from this particular performer, and we created one member object. So the member information, what I'm doing is, we have a two members. What are the two members? Kini as well as Kini1. Now, instead of creating each and every object like this, okay, each and every object like this. So Kini object, and we are extending this particular properties, and here also we are trying to extending this particular instrument. Same common properties here, but only the name of the ID is changing here. Getting the point? Internally we are extending from the same member class, and this also same member, and we are trying to make this particular instrument. Whenever this particular common properties we are going to have, now what I'm doing is, I'm making this particular section as a abstract here, and we are trying to referencing with help of this particular parent here. Now what we can understand the diagram. So it's a simple. This is the parent object. We are trying to inject into these two classes. First one is Kenny and Kenny1 here. Okay, the member 1 and member 2 here. And here the common code we implemented inside this particular parent class here. Getting the point? This is the way of using this particular parent and abstract information. Any questions? Any questions regarding this? Okay, and another important information, instead of using this particular song, now what you can do, you can override the property. So what is the property you can override here? Again, whenever you are trying to override, what happens internally? It will try to take the child declared properties here. Getting the point? It is trying to take this particular child class properties. So for example, here I want to override the property. Name of the property we are going to say, what is the property? Song only. And value, I want to give something. The song basically, what we can provide. What is the song we can provide? So different here, the song I'm trying to give as a same person name. So focus basically how this value is overriding. This is the common value we are using. Okay, now I'm trying to replacing with this particular value. Now whenever I'm trying to run the same example, now you can see the value is replaced here. So earlier, whatever the value we used from this particular section, get it pen. It is the parent class we are using, and now what I'm doing here, I'm trying to override inside this particular Kenny class, and we provided the property attribute, and we override the value. So same thing. If you want to interested, you can go for this particular Kenny1 here. Okay, these are all the parent and child relation. These are all the very important these sections also, because in the common place how we can define the properties and how we can inject it into the specific class. So using this particular parent tag, we can inject into the child class here, and these are all the parent properties here. Okay, so these are all the parent and child relation. Now once we completed here, now I will try to discuss about the another important information what we have. So far we discuss about the singleton scopes related and Autowire concept we discuss here. And another important section what we discuss in the today session, something like the collection related section we discuss here. What are all the pending topics? So we'll try to move on to the evening session, something like so I hope most of the stuff we completed. Now, so what is the best option? Can we continue the annotation example, or we can go for the another important the module here? Because these are all the core module we discussed here. All the the core so far, whatever the core module concepts we have, all we discussed here. Okay. So if we want to continue the same, the XML related application, so I will try to continue the another module, because so we discuss about the all the core related section so far, whatever we are having here. Okay. So what is your suggestions here? What is the best way to continue?
Sir, is annotation based configuration easier to understand, sir?
Mm, Okay, so we'll discuss about the annotation related example, how it is going to work in evening class. So first we'll identify the basic example, how this annotation is going to work. Later, we'll try to continue on the another module, how we can work on the database related example here. Okay, these are all, so far whatever discussed here, these are all the example comes under the core module. So any questions? Okay, if you don't have anything, so we'll continue evening the annotation related example. So once annotation is completed, we'll check with the database related example, how we can inject the database connections, all those things.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so thank you all. We'll continue evening.